Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, your on-air producer, and we had Aerospace Day at the Capitol 2019 on Monday, and so I have in studio with me to talk about it Christie Lee. She is the Government Relations for Lockheed Martin Space, as well as the co-chair of the Colorado chapter of the Citizens for Space Exploration. So how are you doing, Christie?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you. And we had a wonderful Aerospace Day this year.
Yeah.
I believe this was our 5th now.
Yeah.
And it's growing every year, so it was amazing. We had over 400 people come through, and we had over 440 exhibitors on the first floor of the Capitol throughout the day. So it was a great turnout this year.
Yes, and I feel like it gets better and better every year, and we get the proclamation read to us, and that's always really exciting. And then the big picture that we have on social media everywhere of everyone on the steps, which is really exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the reasons that I had Jay Lindell in here from OEDA. He's the champion of space and defense industry in Colorado, and so he was telling us about the aerospace industry. Tom Bugnitz has been in here, so he was telling us about Manufacturer's Edge and their foray into aerospace and what they do. But I'm excited to have you here, one, to talk about Citizens for Space Exploration, but also to talk about all of the co-hosts of Aerospace Day at the Capitol, because there are many.
Yes, there are many. And you just mentioned 2 of them.
Yeah.
So that's 2 of the 5 main co-hosts of the event every year. The other ones are the Colorado Space Coalition, and they're the larger, large prime contractor federal advocacy organization that brings together the larger companies and advocates on behalf of those space businesses more in the federal realm. And then we also have the Colorado Space Business Roundtable as a co-host, and they're more the grassroots, smaller business to large prime organization that's statewide. And then what we found over the years was we would have these events at these organizations, and we wanted to keep them very business aerospace focused, but we'd have so many people from the public coming because it's cool and it's interesting because it's space. And so we decided, hey, we need to tap into this resource here. These people that are showing up, they're citizens, they're not necessarily in the industry. What can we do with them? So about 4 years ago, Stacy DeFore, Teledyne Brown, and myself started the Colorado chapter of Citizens for Space to house this group of citizen advocates for space. And so that's how that started. And I think over the years, we've developed about 600 members now across Colorado. And we have various events throughout the year, and Aerospace Day at the Capitol is one of our biggest.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about Citizens for Space Exploration. 600 members. That's awesome. So again, because it's citizens, anybody can join.
Yes, anyone. And we're happy to have anyone. And that's another reason why Citizens for Space is housed under the Colorado Business Roundtable, and it's a great area for them to be in, so we can tap into industry partners who aren't necessarily aerospace. So we get some people in oil and gas and other industries, and they come to our citizens groups, and we can collaborate. You'd be surprised how many overlap and collaboration we can have with other industries in the aerospace realm. So.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that overlap. But what's a good example here? So we know that manufacturing is huge in the aerospace industry, but why oil and gas? What kind of crossover is there?
There's a lot of energy resources. We use a lot of the same workforce, believe it or not. So a lot of the engineering and technician side of things overlap a little bit. When it comes to energy in general, a lot of the turbines use the same technologies as aviation, so there's a lot of overlap there. So yeah, there's quite a bit. And I found over the years another area is art, because I know everyone talks about STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, but now there's this push for STEAM to add art to that. So there's another overlap there with the art community as well.
Well, and I think a lot of people think of STEM as being very technical and very, I don't want to say narrow-minded because that's not at all the right term, but you get kind of focused on your one area. So if you're in the S field, you're totally science-based. And this art is more of a collaboration of being able to, I think, see an overall picture and putting all of it together.
Yeah. And I gave a talk about space and art a few years ago to a group. And what I started it with was, what do spaceships and Mars and science have to do with art? And then the big overarching thing is it's creativity, right? I mean, nobody's developed any of these concepts yet. How are we going to get to Mars? What is it going to look like? And the internal structures and how people can survive in a small enclosed area takes a lot of creativity, because you're going to be in this tiny little area for, if you go to Mars, for about 9 months. So what do people need? Do they need plants? Do they want to look at art? What makes them feel at home when they're on these long journeys? You can't just have them in a tin can for 8 months, because people would go crazy. I would go crazy. But
oh, I would absolutely go crazy during that. Well, and that's solitary confinement, really. That's the point of it.
Yeah, so you need those creative minds to think, what else do you need in these capsules to make it tolerable?
Yeah, because you can only let the water droplets and gravity entertain you for so long.
Right. And I'm sure the view of like the Earth from space is probably pretty cool, but at some point after 9 months, I think. And
particularly if it's your second or third journey.
Right.
Yes. You've already seen that. Maybe it loses its luster. I hope not. I hope it never does.
Agreed.
What are some other surprising industries that you found that you've been able to collaborate with CSE, Citizens for Space Exploration?
I mean, real estate. We've had real estate and people, like realtors, just because they're interested. We have the #1 space economy in the nation for private aerospace employment. And so it's a big industry, and it creates a lot of jobs in the state, so creates a lot of people who need houses. So it's an interesting link there with, they want that economy to stay strong to keep the housing market going. And so there's just a lot of examples there.
Yeah, that's
It kind of touches everyone's lives. And another one that we found, farming, which is a huge industry in Colorado. GPS technology is now used in a lot of farming equipment for watering plants and making sure, crops are watered. You can monitor them from a drone or a satellite using GPS and map your farm and water your farm based on GPS coordinates. And there's a lot of things going on in the farm industry with GPS. And Colorado is actually the center for GPS. We build the GPS 3 satellites at Lockheed Martin here in Littleton. They're flown out of Schriever Air Force Base down in Colorado Springs, and then the ground systems are developed out in Aurora. So,
wow.
Yeah.
It's as much as we've talked to aerospace here in this room and Colorado Business Roundtable, when we go out on the road and we talk aerospace and we have partnerships with lots of aerospace people, it's still always so exciting to me to know that Colorado is #1 in the aerospace industry per capita, and it's awesome to think that, because inevitably somebody's always like, well, Houston, that's what I think of when I think of space. California, Florida, right?
Yeah.
But Colorado is where it's at.
Yeah, and one really cool fact, now that you brought up Houston, was so our Lockheed Martin's building the Orion spacecraft that'll take our U.S. astronauts to the moon and to Mars eventually. So it's a deep space spacecraft that we're building out in Littleton. And so when you see the movies of, Houston, we have a problem, if something were to happen with Orion, our integrated test lab is actually located in Littleton, Colorado. So they would be like, Littleton, we have a problem. And then those guys would be the ones that would fix something if something were to arise on that spacecraft. So that's really cool coming up.
Yeah, that is super cool. So, I mean, hopefully they don't say that. Littleton, we don't want to hear that. But it's cool to know that we're moving up more into that realm.
Yeah. So we have an exact replica of Orion at our facility for, any harnessing, wires, electrical systems, and all that there. So it's really cool.
It is very cool. I've had a chance to see some of that stuff, which is really exciting. So let's dive in a little bit deeper on CSE.
Sure.
It got its start in 1992, right?
Yes.
So some people may have heard of it, some people may not have heard of it, but it didn't start in Colorado.
Right.
It's definitely grown.
Yes. So then there's a national chapter of Citizens for Space out of the Bay Area Houston Economic Partnership. And they developed it back in 1992 to keep the International Space Station sold. So originally it was called Keep It Sold, National Keep It Sold, to keep ISS going. And then since then, they tagged on the deep space and the human space exploration, and now it's grown into the Citizens for Space national chapter. And then we developed the Colorado chapter a few years ago with Stacy and myself. So there's about 10 states that have chapters now across the country. And then every year, our big event is an annual trip to DC where we bring citizens and students out to talk to their legislators about space and why it's important, specifically human spaceflight.
Yeah, and you guys have had some good victories.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. One big thing is every year there's an Orion SLS. So SLS, Space Launch System, is the rocket that's going to take Orion, the spacecraft, into space. So it's we have to have a really big rocket to get us into deep space with a capsule. So that's what that, if you ever hear SLS or Space Launch System, that's what that is. And so Colorado, every year there's an appropriations letter to fully fund Orion and SLS, and Colorado is the only delegation that has signed on 100% of their members every year over the last 3 years. So we have complete congressional delegation support here in Colorado, and they've been really good supporting Orion SLS.
That's awesome to hear, and and I think one of my favorite things. So I'm not from here, which is most Coloradans these days. We're all transplants.
Native.
Yes, we're shooing you guys out.
Yeah,
I'm telling you. But one of my favorite things that I learned when I moved to Colorado is what great industries we have and collaboration and understanding of those industries. So our legislators and our business leaders work together very well, actually.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. And we actually call each other competimates or frenemies, or however you want to say it, because there is a lot of collaboration, especially in the aerospace industry, because a lot of times you'll be competing with a company on one program, but you're working together on another program, or you're a subcontractor to the other company on one, and they're a subcontractor to you on another. So there is a lot of overlapping work throughout the state. And I think through Citizens for Space, the Space Coalition, and Colorado Space Business Roundtable, we really have formed this great bond over the industry and willing to help each other get, because, you know, what's the term? Rising tide raises all ships. So that's kind of our philosophy with aerospace. It's, you know, let's all help each other, because if the whole industry is doing well, we're all doing well. So let's work together.
Exactly. There's no need to put down another company just because you want that contract, because inevitably there's going to be a part that you don't have your hands in at all that you're going to need that other company for.
Right. Absolutely. That happens a lot.
So let's talk about, so CSE you guys just hosted Aerospace Day at the Capitol. You do your march on the Capitol March in DC every year. What other, you have 4 events every year, yeah?
Yeah, so we do Aerospace Day at the Capitol, and then we'll go to DC the week of May 20th. So if anyone's interested, just look us up online, and happy to take as many citizens as we can take. And then also students as well. We love to have students come along to talk about space and why it's important to them. We also try to do a few just kind of space meetup type things. So we did an event where we saw Neil deGrasse Tyson at the Belco Theater a few months ago. So we brought a group of citizens out for that and had a little reception happy hour and some speeches before we went in. And so that was really fun. So we try to just find different fun ways to know what's going on in space and aerospace. We'll do some tours of facilities. We've toured Lockheed Martin Space, where you can see some of Orion and GPS satellites, and where we fly a bunch of planetary spacecraft out there. And then we do some road trips around the state as well through the Colorado Space Business Roundtable with them. And that's how we've grown our membership, is going all over the state to rural parts of the state, not just on the Front Range. And so we've met a lot of really cool people that are very interested in space across the whole state.
Which is exciting, and I think sometimes we do tend to forget. I feel like Denver is always at the forefront of people's minds when they think of Colorado and the metro area, and it's easy for businesses to get to those entities, but going the fact that you guys make it a point to go across the state is really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very important, I think, to include the entire state. And just an example, on Orion alone, we have over 200 suppliers across the state. So it's surprising how many aerospace companies there are, or people supporting the aerospace companies. We have a company out in Grand Junction called Wren Industries, and they make small hinges for Orion out in Grand Junction. And it's just a tiny little part, but they're part of our space program. So it's really cool to see these different companies and all the components that they provide.
It really is. And I'm sure that that sense of pride of like, you know what? We make these little bitty hinges, but it's going to the freaking moon, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they are super excited about it. And they were one of our success stories from our road trips, actually. So that took them years to get into the process. I know it's painful to do business with some of our large primes, and it's like doing business with the government. But you know, once you're in, it's really a big deal to these companies. And they had about 6 employees at the time, and now they have about 10 to 12. So they've grown quite a bit just from that one program. So
yeah,
really cool.
Doubling in size.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
and for a
amazing.
small community like Grand Junction, that's a big deal.
That is a big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah, and that's the other thing. A lot of these smaller companies, we're not talking 200 companies that are 200 plus employees. We're talking 5 to 10 employees.
Yeah, we have over 500 space-related companies across the state, and over half of those are 10 or fewer employees. So they're really small companies all over.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Christy, I got to ask you, you have been in the aerospace industry in one way or another for a while.
Yeah.
What would you say has been your most surprising fact that you've learned in the industry?
So being a native of Colorado, I'd say my biggest surprising fact is just knowing that we're #1. I think a lot of people don't understand that we are #1 in private aerospace employment per capita in the nation. And then with raw numbers, we're only #2 behind California. And I've grown up here my whole life, and I had no idea. And I didn't even know Lockheed Martin was out there until I got hired. And there's 7,200 employees out there, and we're working on spacecraft that's going to Mars. It's just mind-blowing. And so I had no idea that we were such a big aerospace state. So I think that's the most surprising.
Most surprising. Yeah. That's awesome. Is there any reason, well, I'm sure there are several reasons, actually, to be a citizen for space?
Yes. I mean, I think it's very important to tell our story. It's what people forget is it's the United States space program, right? I mean, it's their space program. So it's everyone who pays taxes, everyone who lives in the United States, this is your space program. So you should be involved. You should see what's going on. You should know that we're taking our astronauts to Mars in the next 10 years. That's huge. That's cool. And I think people, once they hear about it and know what's going on, they do think it's cool. And I think they would be happy to get behind it. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for citizens to get involved in their space program.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I for one am excited to see Mars happen. Mars 2033. That's been a big.
Yeah, that's
that's the goal, right?
Big tagline. Yeah.
But besides that, as far as our future is concerned, membership. What does that look like? How old do I have to be be a CSE?
We will take a baby citizen.
You will.
Yes.
You will.
Why not? You can't start early enough. And I think we've seen that too with kids with STEM. You know, I mean, if you don't get them involved, now they're saying 6th grade or earlier. If they're not involved then they've lost that pathway to those harder STEM and space type classes. So I think the earlier the better. So we would love to we have a lot of high school students that get involved. And some college students, but I think the younger the better if they can participate and see what's going on out there.
I love that. I love hearing that. So one last thing about Aerospace Day here. So we did already have it, so you can't get involved for this year's, but what would be a reason as a business to get involved for Aerospace Day at the Capitol?
So this is kind of so we have the citizens visit to DC. So those are your congressional members. Those are the higher level federal. But this is an opportunity to meet your state legislators. And those are the ones that affect you day to day. You know, these are the ones that make the policies that actually affect you day to day. federal policy, I mean, of course, it affects you as well, but it's not as intimate as it is at the state level. So I feel like this is your opportunity to show your business, talk about space, tell your legislators what's important to you. And you'd be surprised how many, especially at the state level, how many legislators are just readily available to talk to you, and they love to talk to you, and they want to hear these success stories. They hear negative stuff all the time from their constituents, so they love to hear success stories. Here's my business, here's what we're doing, here's this really cool thing we're working on in your district. And so I think it's a really good opportunity for people across Colorado to just tell their story about what they're doing in space to their legislators at the state level.
Awesome. I love hearing that. What was your biggest takeaway? This was number 5 of all the aerospace days. I'm sure they incrementally get better, right?
Yeah, they do. And I'm excited to see more students getting involved, especially at the college level. I think this is a great event for students to get involved and come and talk to different companies, and what do these different companies do, where can you get involved, where can you volunteer, where can you get an internship. So I think it's a really good networking opportunity for our college students, and then a really good opportunity for our younger students just to get inspired and see what's out there in space and get more involved.
Awesome. So where can I find more information? How can I get involved with CSE? If I want to, I don't know, maybe talk to Lockheed Martin Space, where can I find more information on that?
I'm not going to give out my cell phone number, but so you can go to the Colorado Business Roundtable's website. The Citizens for Space Exploration website is housed there, so we'll be posting events that are upcoming on there, as well as just next year. We usually open registration for Aerospace Day in January, so just a quick Google search, Aerospace Day at the Capitol, it should come up, and people can register. Or, you know, it's always held the second or third Monday of March, so people are welcome to just show up. You don't have to register if you just want to attend. It's at the Capitol. It's the People's Building, so it's open to everyone. So please just show up if you want.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I know that Citizens for Space, at least their Twitter is at citizens4space.
Yeah.
Yes. So if you are social media, you're a little hesitant to get involved and you want to see what they've got going on, social media is a great way into that.
Yes.
Yeah. So any last thoughts here about aerospace and where we're headed in 2019? Give me all your government secrets on where Lockheed Martin Space is going.
So we're going to release the aliens soon. No. Next year is going to be a huge year for space. So we're going to do our next test flight of Orion. So that'll be Exploration Mission 1. And so look out for that. That's going to be a huge milestone in the space program. It'll be the first time the Space Launch System rocket has launched as well. So it'll be big. And then the end of this year, we're going to start taking astronauts on the Boeing CST-100 and SpaceX Dragon back to the space station using U.S. assets. So this will be an exciting, the next year is going to be huge.
Yes, exciting stuff on the horizon.
Yes.
Thank you, Christie. It is a pleasure to have you in studio. Again, Christie Lee, Government Relations with Lockheed Space, as well as the co-chair of Colorado chapter of the Citizens for Space Exploration. Aerospace Day was amazing, and that was March 11th this year, so 2 days ago on Monday. But be sure to get excited and get involved next year. You open it up in January to start getting businesses and people involved. And if you are a student, definitely get involved with Citizens for Space Exploration. Go knock on some legislators' doors. That can be really fun. Yeah. So again, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Our pleasure. And be sure to like and subscribe our YouTube page while you're here. Visit cobrt.com/radio-podcast for this show and more. And also, while you're at cobrt.com, check out Citizens for Space Exploration. We house that as well. You can sign up for our newsletter while you're there and check out our events page. So have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.